tuned in to the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
Hey, it's Ron, it's Chris, and we're talking about a special edition of the first round. One of my absolute favorite subjects. You can see we've got some Negro League jerseys back up here. I've got my Homestead Grays hat on. It's got to be the Negro Leagues again, talking about them. And this week, the big news coming out of Major League Baseball, they say that they are going to reclassify, is the term that was used by Rob Manfred, reclassify the Negro Leagues to be a part of Major League Baseball and to absorb all those statistics that the Negro Leagues racked up from basically 1920 to about 1951. Officially, the Negro Leagues stopped in 1948. But there was still some teams out there trying to barnstorm and put together games, but it just wasn't enough attendance-wise, and they had to fold up. I'm joined, as I always am, here in the first round by Chris Roberts. It's about time for this to happen, or did you ever think that this would happen?
Well, I think it's about time for this to happen. I feel that MLB, this has been a long time coming for Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. I know they have been trying to work on getting minorities more involved in baseball. You had guys like Torrey Hunter, trying to get minorities and the inner city into baseball. I think this is a start for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, is it me? I don't like that term minorities because I just like to look at people as people. I'm like somebody who will less classify and just look at human beings as human beings. Am I crazy for that?
Well, I mean, no. Really, the term really is trying to get more African Americans into baseball. To be honest with you, because over the years, African Americans, I think from the 1960s up to probably like the 1980s, African Americans made up like 28% of players in Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. Now, African Americans only make up less than 10%. So that drop off, with other sports coming in, baseball, basketball, football or whatnot coming in to attract those players away, is actually kind of taken away from baseball. I mean, you're taking away from some of the greatest players. I mean, when you think of baseball, you think of someone like a Willie Mays, or you think of Hank Aaron. Yep. Then you can go on and on about some of the greatest players in baseball. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you look at baseball now, it's very few and far between that you see those African Americans actually contribute to the game of baseball. Yeah,
thanks a lot, Kyler Murray. Let's talk about a little bit of the history of the game. We're talking about the Negro Leagues, like I said, it was basically from 1920. Now, there were Negro League teams in the 1880s. 1885, you had the Cubans. Excuse me. There was pockets of teams, but nothing officially about till 1920. And there was actually several Negro leagues. You had the Negro National League, which was in effect from 1920 to 31. They took off for 2 years, and then they were back from 33 to 48. The Eastern Colored League, which was 1923 to 1928, and then they fizzled out. A lot of those players got absorbed into the Negro American League, which was 1937 to 1960. And the Negro Leagues themselves were pretty much brought in and formed, and what we know of them now and the way we see the Negro Leagues now, by one guy. His name was Rube Foster. He played for the Chicago Giants, inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1981. But this is somebody that you want to go Google and learn up on. This guy did so much for African Americans in baseball and for the Negro Leagues. He got all-star games going every single year at Comiskey Park. All the Negro League All-Stars would play there. He was the one who was negotiating contracts on behalf of the players. I mean, Rube Foster is somebody you want to look up. Another person that I think is significant in Negro League history was one of the owners of the Negro League teams, the Newark Eagles, in 1946. It was a female. Her name was Effa Manley. Her husband played in the Negro Leagues, then went on to own a team. When he passed away, she took over as owner and actually led them to a Negro League World Championship against the Kansas City Monarchs, one of my favorite Negro League teams. So that's another person that you might want to go learn about. Not a lot of people know about Effa Manley. Effa Manley and Rube Foster. Definitely want to look them up. There's, believe it or not, about 55 or 56 former Negro League players that are still alive, and one of them that I didn't even know about was Willie Mays. In 1948, he played with the Birmingham Black Barons, and 16 of his hits that were not exhibition game hits are now going to be counted in his Major League record. So he just picked up 16 hits because of what Major League Baseball is doing. And all those other statistics that were so rightfully earned in exhibition games, pro games, barnstorming, 2 or 3 games a day, those are all going to come into the Major League Baseball records, except some of the exhibition games for some reason aren't going to be counted. One of the best players ever in baseball, Negro Leagues or otherwise, is this guy right here. Played for the Homestead Grays, a catcher, number 20, Josh Gibson. Many people in baseball circles know or think of him or refer to him as the real king of the home run. He is the home run king of baseball. It's been said, the number's been thrown out, that he had over 900 home runs. I know for a fact he's the only man to hit a home run out of Yankee Stadium. Now, you think about the Bronx Bombers and Babe Ruth and all the sluggers they've had over the years. Reggie Jackson has gone through there. Lots of guys that can hit the long ball, including Aaron Judge. No one had ever hit one out of the stadium in New York except Josh Gibson. Now, what I read online today is they're only going to count about 263 of his home runs that were widely accepted, known, and talked about being over 900 because these are exhibition games. Major League Baseball is taking this step forward, but is it enough? Like, I look at this and go, why don't you? It's hard to quantify them, and I think they're bringing in Elias Sports Bureau to quantify a lot of these stats, which has to be a mess,
Right.
getting all this together. But it's the right thing to do. But is this enough, Chris? Enough of a step, enough of a gesture, enough of a moving forward? Is this actually going to fix the problem?
I think it's a stepping stone. It's something that baseball should have done a long time ago, but it's a stepping stone into the right direction, and that's all you really can ask for is moving into the right direction.
Yeah, I think this is a massive plus. I've actually been to, and I know this. A lot of people say, if you ask them, where's the Negro League Baseball Hall of Fame? They're going to say it's in Kansas City. But that's actually not technically right. I've been there, and I talked with one of the guys that worked with Buck O'Neil, who established it in Kansas City in 1994. It's the Negro League Baseball Museum. It's not a Hall of Fame. And he definitely took me aside and told me a lot of stuff about it, but wanted me to make sure that I knew it's not a Hall of Fame, because Negro League players are in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I think they rightfully should be. But Buck O'Neil, a former player, also a former manager in the Negro Leagues, is the one that pretty much spearheaded the effort to get that museum up. Have you ever been there, or do you know much about it?
Never been there, but I've heard some things about the museum.
It is awesome. It's all exactly on par with the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Have you been to that one in Cooperstown?
No, I haven't taken that trip to Cooperstown yet.
A couple months ago, I called you and said we need to head up there, but it's definitely on par with that. With the statistics, they have an infield right in the middle of it that you walk around. Tons of artifacts, tons of actual pieces of memorabilia, signed pieces. A lot of the guys over the last 25 years that it's been open, that have been alive, have come in there to try and promote the Negro League Baseball Museum. Buck O'Neil was the guy who spearheaded it pretty much to get that started. He wrote a book called I Was Right on Time. If you have a chance to Google that or read that book, there's a lot of great stories in there about the major leagues, about interactions he had with Babe Ruth and other major players that were awesome back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, Negro Leagues or Major League Baseball. And one thing that I think a lot of the younger generation doesn't know is a lot of the players that actually played in the Negro Leagues. Like, I knew about Josh Gibson. I didn't know that Willie Mays played on the Birmingham Black Barons. And some of the names of the teams are actually cool. We've got the Pittsburgh Crawfords up here. I think about the Clowns, the New York Black Cubans, the Crackers. I mean, the names of them they're colorful emblems. The names are colorful. But some of the players that you might not know that played in the Negro Leagues, Josh Gibson we talked about, Monty Irving, also went on to have an awesome career in the Major Leagues. How about Satchel Paige? He was in the Negro Leagues. Oldest what?
Oldest pitcher to start, rookie pitcher to start a game.
Oldest rookie in Major League Baseball, Satchel Paige. He came over when he was, 45?
45.
I think he was 45, and he left the Negro Leagues and started playing in the majors and was still dominant at that age. Here's another thing I love about the nicknames of the Negro League players. If I said James Thomas, what would you say his nickname was? He played for the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the St. Louis Stars. Do you know his nickname he was given?
No, what was his nickname?
Cool Papa Bell. And the story about Cool Papa Bell, another one you've got to go Google right as soon as we're done here, is Cool Papa Bell was so fast on the base paths. They said that after the games, he'd go to the hotel, shut the light off, and be in the bed by the time the light went black. That's how fast he was.
That's fast.
That's fast right there. Cool Papa Bell, James Thomas. How about Ted Double Duty Ratcliffe? He was known for playing back-to-back games. They'd play one game. Sometimes they'd play a doubleheader. They'd get on a bus. They'd go to the next town. They'd play another doubleheader because the way that you got paid wasn't weekly. The way you got paid was the more games you played.
Right.
If you could play 4 games, they'd do it. They'd get on that bus and try and get down the road. Roy Campanella, everybody knows about Jackie Robinson. So some major players that ended up playing in the major in the fact that their statistically were awesome, great achievements. A lot of these guys in the Negro Leagues ended up playing in the major leagues.
Yeah, and that's the the great thing about it is they were able to go ahead and cross that color line, which showed that America did was beginning to head in that right direction, and the fact that baseball, which was again considered a sport that was a predominantly white dominated sport during that time, the fact that they were able to have guys like Jackie Robinson come into the league as well as Willie Mays. It shows you that that baseball itself, they eventually were able to evolve.
Yeah.
And hopefully with Major League Baseball accepting these statistics into the game, hopefully it'll begin to draw more people to baseball as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great move. I think it's overdue. I think these guys are well deserving. You think about all of the oppression. You think about the lack of pay. You think about the lack of recognition and lack of all the acknowledgement of all their efforts. I mean, they started their own league. Think about that. They didn't have a ton of money. You don't have people behind you. Nobody really cares about what you're doing back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s where it's mainly a white-dominated world. So you don't have corporate sponsorships. And you got to go out there with their entrepreneurial mind and a lot of determination and make it happen. And that's exactly what they did. Rube Foster was putting together all-star games every single year with many Major League white baseball players at the time would say, hey, if they played us, they'd beat us 9 times out of 10 because there was so much talent in the Negro Leagues at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate. I mean, because these guys were the same guys who probably fought in the trenches in World War I with these players, with their white counterparts. And so the fact that, they probably had a relationship with them anyway, and the fact that you come home, and you're now, segregated again, it kind of shows that America was in the wrong place at the time. But the fact that, they were able to go ahead and get this thing integrated, and now they're actually integrating what the Negro League's done and putting it into baseball is showing that, again,
credibility.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to agree with me. The way that we overcome our faults in the past is to become educated today. Yeah. So these guys that I'm talking about, Double Duty Ratcliffe, it's easy to go look up Jackie Robinson. What about Monty Irving and Cool Papa Bell and Satchel Paige and a lot of these other guys, Buck O'Neill, Buck Leonard, that you've never heard of? Google is right there. All the information you want to know or could know, it's right there. I think it's incumbent upon us to be different and better than the generation before us. And one of the main ways that we can do that is become educated about these players, what they actually accomplished. Their statistics are on par, if not better in a lot of cases, than the Major League players. And the Major League players had it easy. They had corporate sponsorships. They had huge amounts of bankroll behind them. They were making a lot of money, the Mickey Mantles of the world and the Roger Marises and the Ted Williams. They were making a lot of money compared to these Negro League players, and they still overcame. A lot of these guys, I collect memorabilia, and everything that you see on our set here is all real memorabilia, real signatures of the people that you see up here, like Frank Robinson, the first black manager in Major League Baseball. A lot of these guys that played in the Negro Leagues, I know because I've been doing this for over 30 years now, they didn't even know how to sign their name. They would go down and play in the Dominican Leagues or in Puerto Rico during the winter to make extra money, and they used to have to sign waivers basically saying, hey, I'm not holding this team physically responsible if I get hurt in any way. And a lot of times it would just be an X, or the secretary or the person that did the HR, the finances for these teams, would sign the person's name. So even finding any of their autographs out there, just for those two reasons, is very difficult. This is something that Chris can tell you I'm super passionate about. In our last studio, we had that big piece with 20 that was commissioned by, at the time, 20 living Negro League players and their wives.
Right.
And I happen to get one of them. It's going to be up in our new studio. I encourage you guys, if you don't know about the Negro Leagues, find out about some of these players that are a little more off the radar that you haven't heard of, because they did incredible things, and they did it overcoming massive odds that Major League Baseball players didn't have to face. We want you to be a part of the team. Join us in the comment section right down here and tell us your favorite stories, or ask us questions about anything in this show or any of our other archive shows. Become a member of the First Round family. You can do it real easy. You hit the subscription button right there and join one of almost 3,000 subscribers that we have to this point. Hit the notification button. You will be updated by YouTube every time we put out special videos like this one. We will be back after the holidays. Next week, we've got Christmas coming up. After that, we're going to be right back here talking about everything going on in the world of sports. Until then, take care of yourselves, everybody.